And what that showed was by oxidizing it in these chemical conditions in a heap leach column, same type of column test you do for any heap leach, over 127 days, we could oxidize the sulfides by 30%. That oxidation allowed us to improve the gold and silver recovery from about 30% gold recovery if I did nothing to 60.
Hello and welcome to Assay TV. In this edition, we're profiling Chesapeake Gold, the company developing a world-class asset at the Metates project in Durango in Mexico. And I'm catching up with Alan Pangbourne, President and CEO of the company, to tell us about the projects and where we're at the moment. So good to see you again, Alan.
Good morning, Adam. Good to see you again too.
Yeah, so since you last updated with the assay, you've updated the maiden resource with some impressive grades at Metates. Can you share with us what's the current news at the moment?
Sure. So it's really the culmination of the work over the last 2 years. If you remember back, we drilled 5 holes and we got a nice surprise. The grade in the holes was 18 to 20% higher than the block model suggested it would be. We went, that's nice, upside for a change. And so we drilled some more holes and we drilled another 18 holes and we got those back, and lo and behold, they showed a similar trend. And that actually caused us to go back and have a rethink, because when you get that sort of bulk of holes over the central core, which is the key piece of our project, that are coming back higher grades, you need to understand why. So it took us a while, but we worked with some really reputable geologists that I've worked with in the past. And we went through everything. We reassayed some older core. We did all sorts of stuff to understand why that difference. And so really the resource update that came out 3 weeks ago, I think it was now, or 2 weeks, is the culmination of that work. And it reflects the fact that the higher grade core, as we suspected it may be, is actually quite a bit higher grade. And so the results were that we got a lift of almost 16%, I think 15.8 was the headline number, of gold in the intrusive and intrusive breccia, which is the core piece of the deposit that the entire project, the new envisioned project at Metates, is based on. So that's really important, because 15.8% goes straight to the bottom line. So every ton that's ore is now 15%, 16% richer with no additional costs. It's the same cone, it's the same process, it's the same mining costs. So that's really encouraging and great news, and confirms something that we suspected may have been going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And what could you tell viewers about the overall size of this deposit now?
So that the Metates deposit is one of the largest undeveloped gold and silver deposits in the world. And several people have stated that in various publications. And so when anybody's looking for large gold silver deposits, we pop up. It's been undeveloped for quite a long time. We came along a couple of years ago with a new way to look at it. But the deposit itself and the new resource estimate is 19 million ounces of gold and another 480 plus million ounces of silver. So it is a really, really large deposit. And we're only focused on the first couple of 100 million tons out of 1 billion to get us going. Yeah, we're taking a very, very different approach. Instead of building this massive multi-billion-dollar project, which we could never fund, and we'd need to bring in a major partner to do it, and we'd be end up as a really small minority partner, we've got a new approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, can you tell us more about the strategy from here then? You don't want the big major coming in and perhaps changing that approach. What is the path from here?
So from the very beginning, when we took over management just over 2 years ago now, our strategy was to look for a smaller, financeable, deliverable, and then expandable project within the Metates deposit. And that was the basis of a PEA that we put out a while back that showed that 15,000 ton a day through a processing plant you could get this project that will produce 150,000 ounces a year gold equivalent for only $360 million capital, and then expand when the time is right. So that's always been the strategy. So everything we've been doing, the drilling, the resource update, sometime back in September, we put out a metallurgical update, and we can talk about the technology in a minute. The PEA is all putting the building blocks together to produce a PFS. And that's what we're going to continue to do this year. So we restarted the environmental monitoring. We'll have 2 years of monitoring completed by the end of this year. Updated all the topo to include a wider area so as we can get the road route back to the main road included in there. What else? We've sorted out where we believe we'll get the power supply from, and we've got information on the power line that's less than a kilometre from site, and the right of way, which is the most important piece. We've started conversations with the local ejido, local community leadership, about an exploitation agreement. So once we've done the PFS, we can move straight into our permit application. So all of that work is going on in the background with our team to have all of those building blocks ready to put together a PFS with an engineering company, independent advisors, and get that out sometime early next year.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. How is the mining environment, just in terms of thinking about that permitting piece and how you're moving towards that with your community development as well?
The environment with the communities is very positive. We had our first meeting with the president and the secretary of the community in November last year. Very well received. By the end of the day, we were driving around, me and him in his truck, looking at stuff and what could we do and how could we work together. So that's encouraging. The local government in Durango is also very supportive. I've met with the Secretary of Economic Development twice, once in November when I was there, and then I met him again last week at PDAC. I think it was last week. I'm losing track of time. So you know, it's great to keep talking to these people, because at the end of the day, the strategy to get permits anywhere in the world should be your neighbors first, the local council or mayor second, the provincial government third, and then finally go to the feds. Because that way you're presenting a united front to the authorities that not just I want this project, all of us want this project.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Well, look, you mentioned something on the new technology side there, and that's an interesting aspect as to how you can this project as well. Can you tell us more? Yeah,
so if people look at my background, I worked in the copper division of BHP for 15 years, and I've been interested in technologies for a long, long time. And we did some pretty cool things when I was at BHP. And so, I don't know, a few years back, I came across a technology that couples with what we were doing in the copper business, where the copper business for 30 years has been oxidizing sulfides in a heap leach environment. I built one of the largest in the world back in 2006. It started up. And that was processing over 50,000 ton a day. It was a 250,000 ton a day mine, made 200,000 tons a year of copper by oxidizing the sulfides in a heap leach. That's unique across the mining industry. The copper division is really the only division that is oxidizing sulfides in a heap leach environment. So I've seen that. I physically understand how it all goes together and how it all works. A few years back, I found a chemistry that works in an alkali environment and therefore should work in the gold industry. So when we came into Chesapeake, that's the underlying crux of the concept of this smaller project. It's a heap leach. It's oxidizing the sulfides. Back in September, we put out a metallurgical update, which we put out our proof of concept that shows that it works. What that showed, we put a picture out earlier than that, but in September, we put the results out behind it because we had all the final results done. And what that showed was by oxidizing it in these chemical conditions in a heap leach column, same type of column test you do for any heap leach, over 127 days, we could oxidize the sulfides by 30%. That oxidation allowed us to improve the gold and silver recovery from about 30% gold recovery if I did nothing to 60. And it improved the silver recovery from about 20% to 50. So now that's the new technology. It's been applied in the copper industry for 30 years, as I said. It's a different chemistry, but everything else, and the listeners to our corporate presentation, there's a slide in there that compares the copper process to the gold process we're proposing, is the same. And I'm quite happy to sit there and say, look, there's our proof of concept column. We've had 30 something other columns running in the lab now for a good year and a half. We're slowly building that database of information on how and what we can vary to improve that oxidation, either let it run longer or increase the speed at which it does it. But every column we've put on has oxidized. It's just a case of how much and how long. So we're working through that. So that's a key, that is probably the key piece of information we need to support that PFS next year.
Absolutely amazing. And just on this technology, is this unique to Chesapeake? Is this patented? This is part of the whole strategy, of course. But for investors looking at what's unique about your company here, this is
it's patent pending. We have an unrestricted worldwide license to use it from the owners of the patent. We probably actually know more about what does and what doesn't work now than they do, because for 2 years we've been working on all of this stuff in the background. And so, it's a key piece of our strategy, because there will be a time where we understand a lot better than anybody else and can look at other deposits of similar characteristics. So Metates is very large. Forget the size. The size is great, but what's key about it is it's a refractory sulfide, and this will allow us to process refractory sulfides for significantly less capital. I mean, 360 million is nothing these days compared to multiple billions for the autoclave project. It uses 90% less power.
I was going to ask about energy,
Yeah. Uses 90% less power because I'm not grinding it. I'm not running the float plant. I'm not running mills. I'm not running an oxygen plant. I'm not running an autoclave. Uses 90% less water for the same reasons. And there's no tailings dam, which means I'm not going to wake up in the morning on the front page of the Globe and Mail because another tailings dam has gone down a valley. Yeah. So all of that, when you put all of that together, I believe it gives us a really exciting and interesting opportunity where you can develop these unloved deposits, look for them and add them to our portfolio. And really, this will change the industry.
Yeah, it's revolutionary, really. If everything comes up, it's going to set the new bar.
Yes and no. I tend to look at it more as look over the fence, see what they're doing, and go, why can't I do the same thing over here? Well, because the acid chemistry doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay, so find an alkali chemistry that does. There are other minerals that are leached using alkali chemistry or acid chemistry. Uranium is the obvious example. Yeah. So it's not a big leap of faith. It will have a massive impact on the industry because now all of these sulfides that are 1.5 grams that will never go through an autoclave are potentially economic, and we have the key.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, thinking about the market at the moment and sort of sentiment coming in with this wonderful development story that you've got, the technology piece, the wind could be in the sails here, but for investors interested in interesting gold plays, for instance, what would be a summation of where we're at now and why Chesapeake?
So obviously the technology is Interesting. But even your base case, if you're looking for large gold and silver ounces in the ground, which some of our investors are, we've got one of the biggest. So if it's leveraged to the gold price, as the gold price moves up and banks go pear-shaped, we're a great investment. We're currently trading at about $4 an ounce. Yeah, and one of the highest ounces per share out there. We've only got 67 million shares out. We've got 27 or so million dollars in the bank. So we've got plenty of money to fund what we're doing. We're not running around looking for $1 million here and $1 million there like many of the exploration companies. So, I think we're in a very strong position to weather out any storm that's coming and take advantage of any upside in the gold price whilst we work out the technology. And once we put out more and more and more results behind the technology, I'm sure more and more people will start going, that's interesting. Yeah. So that's why Chesapeake. Good location, massive deposit, interesting new technology, significantly reduces the risk as far as capital. Green, 90% less power, 90% less water, no tailings dam.
Yeah.
And that's not greenwashing, that's real.
Yeah. Very compelling, particularly in the junior gold mining space. You don't often get those credentials accompanying a good deposit and a good asset as well. So fantastic. Alan, look, really good to chat with you and get an insight there, particularly on the technology and these building blocks, you say, building towards the PFS. And hopefully we can catch up with you to hear more about that progress towards the PFS later in this year.
That would be great, Adam. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you.